Hello and hello everybody, my name is Lucy and welcome to Books and Brushes. Yes, we are still on the floor with the stacks. So today I'm going to do my June wrap up. And surprisingly, I read more books in June than I thought I was gonna. So let's talk about June, because June was a month. So in case you haven't been on my channel and you don't really know, I moved on the 1st of June. So that was a big life change for me, moving house, moving from a flat to a house with my boyfriend. Big change, lots going on, a lot of mental health stuff going on up here, which I am not going to tell you all about. Then there's just the world, where we got coronavirus and we got Black Lives Matter riots going on, because our world is still so fucked up in so many ways and it's just a joyous place. But we've got to keep fighting, because what else can you do? But we're not here to talk about any of that. We're here to talk about the 6, yes, I said 6 books I read this month, which is above average for me. I'm about to go into July and August, which tends to be big reading months for me because I like the reading rush and everything. Let's just get into the books. This video is going to be really long already and my butt will die. So the first book I read this month, I read this on the day of the move and thereafter. So this book has some negative emotions attached to it, I will preface that. But that is Infinity Sun by Adam Silvera. My bestest booktube friend, Matthew from Matthew Reads and Writes, his Adam Silvera obsession has taken over and I just really want to get on the Adam Silvera train. But then I started with his latest book, his fantasy book, Infinity Sun, and I think I started in the wrong place. Infinity Sun is about these two brothers in this very modern but also fantastical world with superpowers and magical creatures, and it's all about these two boys and what happens when you get powers and suddenly being on like a superhero fighting team and good versus evil and all of that stuff. So let's talk about what I liked about this book. I can see how Adam Silvera's writing is known in the contemporary world. I could really feel the sense of a contemporary writer while reading this book. I loved the representation of Emil and that cute little scene with him and the customer at the museum. That was cute as anything. I really loved the idea of the magical creatures in this book. The phoenix on the cover, the phoenixes are very prevalent in the story, and our main character Emil, he has a deep love for phoenixes. He absolutely loves them, he thinks they're wonderful creatures, and he works in this museum, but he works in the gift shop and he wishes he could work as a tour guide. It's like his dream to be an expert in phoenixes, and I loved that. The idea of this character, you could feel had such a depth of love for animals, especially these magical creatures, and it was really interesting to see when people were using this blood magic to kill phoenixes and take their power, how deeply upsetting and revolting that was, especially to a character like Emil, who found that deeply disturbing. And I did as well. I kind of fell in love with the idea of these phoenixes with Emil. He loved it so much. I love animals, so I fell right in there with him. And then the idea of people like using these animals, it was all gross. I just really liked that aspect. That was a really interesting thing about this world and about this character, his love of these magical creatures. And let's move on to some things I read this book a month ago and I still haven't quite made up my mind on what I think of this book and where I fall, and I don't know, it's a weird one. It's really weird in my head, and I don't know if that's because it has a lot of negativity surrounding the move day. I don't really know anymore. Some of the negatives include there was a lot going on. This book has a real mix of modern, contemporary with fantasy, but also like a superhero story. It's all three, and while I don't think you can't not write a book about all three, there's a lot to pack into this very small book. So I felt like at the beginning there was a lot of just information just thrown at you, coming at all sides, and it was a bit confusing. Not in the way that I didn't understand what was going on, but in the way that my brain hadn't seen a world like this before. And so it was trying to drop in all these little tidbits to flesh out this world, but it just felt weird and out of place. By the time I got to the end of the book, I understood this world, but at the beginning, it is not something I'd really seen before, having all three of these different genres try and be one. So there's a lot of elements of modern day. One of the main characters, Brighton, has a YouTube channel and he's constantly talking about his algorithm and viral videos and views, and that's obviously very, very relevant to today. Then you got the magical creatures and the fantastical setting, but then it's also a superhero story. So there's like a crew of crime fighters, and then there's police, and then there's blood mages, so they're like the baddies. So there's a lot to do in this one book. as well. The same with the characters. A lot of the characters, and I hate to say this, I didn't separate them in my mind. They were just one crew. I know it was like Maribel and Atlas. I kind of know. Atlas was one with the stormy powers, kind of like him, I think. There was the runner dude. There was Maribel, who was feisty, and I remember who she was primarily because of the ending. There was the healer character. I really loved her and how she took on the pain of people she healed. That was really interesting. But there was a lot of characters that just kind of blurred together because there were so many, and so many introductions at short time. Like, they just introduced all of them to you all in one go. And I wish Adam Silvera just spent a little bit more time kind of defining each one. My brain just skimmed over all of them. Like, they're all the crime fight guys. Okay. And so by the end, they'd started to come out as their own personalities, but I wish that was firm from more of the beginning. Brighton, one of our main characters, damn did I want to punch him in the face. He's like obsessed with views. He's very arrogant. He's very entitled. And he's just an arsehole. And I assume that was the point. The point was to hate him. Well, not hate him, but be frustrated with him and just want to... He's like a family member that you love because he's your family member, but also they say some dumb shit. You just want to punch them. You know that person? Brighton's that person. Which I think was intentional, and I think there was a real moral in that somewhere. There are ideas of addiction, what with the drug, ideas of good versus evil, and I think that maybe our main character is going to become more morally grey as time goes on, which will be interesting. Emil, I liked him as a character. Like I said, I love that Phoenix thing. Apart from that, sometimes he was very cookie cutter, basic bitch, hero archetype, hero's journey character. He fits that to a T. Brighton was just a dickhead to him the whole time. I get it, your brother's a bit dull, but you don't need to be such an asswipe that you're not powerful, okay? Sit down. Things I liked about this book, things I didn't like. Pulling itself in two directions. I've read a lot of reviews, and there's a lot of bad reviews and a lot of amazing reviews. I think if I reread this book, I'd like it a lot more. Infinity Reaper is coming out soon, and again, just like this cover, which is, oh, the gold and black gets me every time. But the new cover is also stunning. Will I be picking up the next one? I'm not really sure. I think, like I said, I started with Adam Silvera in a very unusual place. I think I really need to go and read some of his contemporaries to really understand who Adam Silvera is as a writer. Plus, I'm really interested in a lot of the synopses of some of his older backlisted books. The next book I read in June was a buddy read with Matthew. I know I talk about Matthew all the time. Hi Matthew. But he's an amazing person, so I'm going to talk about him. We started reading A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. We are going to read this trilogy, one book every month, so I'll read the second one in July and the third one in August. Oh my god, I loved it. V.E. Schwab just doesn't let you down. I am just falling ever deeper into the V.E. Schwab pit of love that I will never climb out of. I'm falling more deeply in love with this woman by the day. This book was no exception to her previous masterpieces. In fact, it stood on its own. All her books are so different. They stand so separate and beautiful and amazing. It's like, not only can she create one amazing series, but she can just get so many ideas. I don't know how she does it. Also, I love her Instagram. I could literally go through her Instagram for days. She's just so inspirational and down to earth and real about the writing process and about the publishing process and just all of that. And I love her to death. But let's talk about the book. You probably know, but this book is set in a world where it's essentially set in London, but there's 4 versions of London. So there's Black London, White London, Red London, and Grey London. And most people don't know these worlds, but our main character is this traveller. He's an Antari. Oh my god, I read this at the beginning of June, so I don't remember all the technical terms, but he's this very rare breed of person who can travel between these worlds. He has this like special blood magic, and he's like, one of his eyes is black, which is a great character feature. But he can travel between the different types of Londons, and he tends to smuggle things between each one, which he shouldn't do, but he does because it's like how he gets his kicks. And each London is so wildly different from the other. Red London has magic, and that's where he's from, and there's like all different royal families in each London. They all have wildly different politics in each. Grey London has no magic at all. In fact, they don't even know if it really exists. Black London got just obliterated by magic. They were overrun by magic. And White London is desperate for magic, so it knows of magic, and it's like clawing for the last scraps that they can get. All of the versions of London that we see, the world building is just, it's magical. It was so interesting to read about these different Londons and the different politics of each. And Kel, our main character, I loved him as a main character. He was so fascinating, and his great sidekick, she was I knew it. As soon as she came into the picture, I was like, you're gonna be, aren't you? Yeah, okay. Loved her. I loved their dynamic. I think Victoria Schwab does it great. A man a bit soft, not soft, but very heartfelt in a way, and then a woman who's just, she's a bit of a badass. It works. And I love it when a female badass character is actually badass. Let me just preface that now. Because I hate it when books like, oh yeah, she's such a badass, and then she like never gets her hands dirty and never proves it. And that pisses me off. I loved the characters. They were so well written and in depth. Holland, oh Holland. There was many scenes that gave me utter chills. There was the king and queen of one city, I won't tell you which, that they were something else. They were so horrific, and there was these scenes where they're just delighting in torture, and it was written so well. The emotional value of Victoria Schwab's words is so powerful, and she doesn't need many to convey it. I remember messaging Matthew like, oh yeah, king and queen of this place, they're delightful. And he was like, oh okay, I can't wait to see. And then he got there and was like, oh, you meant delightful, like as in sarcastic. Oh, they are not delightful. And I loved them. This book was so good. I expect nothing less from Victoria Schwab. I cannot wait to read the other two in this trilogy. World building, perfect. Characters, so beautiful in depth. The interactions and the dialogue, the emotion and the theming, the texture. I just don't know how she does it. Victoria Schwab is becoming one of my favourite authors, without question. Most people have already read this series, but I don't mind being behind. I'm always behind, but here I am. I'm on the train and I'm ready to go. You'll be seeing my wrap up for the second book in next month's wrap up. But just know I'm deeply in love, and I will never not be in love. Even the peculiar coat, she had me from that first sentence. I'm gonna stop gushing now, but how? Continuing with the gush fest, because we like to have a bit of variety going on. The third book I read in June was a book I wasn't sure about. I was not sure whether I'd like this book. I bought it a couple of years ago probably, and I was like, I just need to get this book done. If I love it or hate it, I just need to read it and get it off my TBR, because I bought it so long ago that I haven't been interested in it for a long time. And I know that's really silly, but us booktubers do that a lot. Us book nerds who buy a lot of books and then suddenly you just lose interest for ones that fell through the cracks. So I bought this book a while ago and I just thought, just try it, see what happens. It was June, Pride Month, so I was trying to read gay books, and this was a gay book, so I picked it up. And it blew my expectations because I was so wrong about what this book was going to be. I realised I haven't mentioned the title yet, and that is A Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue by Mackenzie Lee. I loved this book so much. So this is a historical fiction about Monty. Monty is the son of a lord. He's supposed to inherit his father's estate, and he is a very wealthy British lord before he becomes owner of the estate and becomes basically a miniature version of his father. He's going on tour with his best friend and his sister, and it's like customary for these young British men to go on a European tour, which was a historical thing. And so he's going on this tour through like Paris, Barcelona, Italy. I realised I said 2 cities and then 1 country. What are you doing, brain? He's going on this tour and he thinks it's going to be this lash up, essentially. He's going to be away from his domineering father and his stuffy life, and he's going to finally be on tour with his best friend. He's going to drink all day and party all night and sleep with all of the people to be with his best friend for this whole tour. But it doesn't quite end up planned out like that. His father has got him a handler who's going to guide him and restrict him the whole tour to make sure he sees culture and doesn't do any of the philandering that he desires. And then things take a turn and things get dangerous, and there's an adventure, an escape, all sorts of things kick off in this story, and I love it so much. I remember reading this book and the first chapter, because I had this assumption in my head that I wasn't going to like it, which was stupid, but it was true. So I was reading it and like, yeah, it's okay, you know, it's not as boring, that's pretty nice. I'm reading it, and then 3 or 4 chapters in, I was already really emotional and tearing up. We're at the beginning of this story and already you're making me tear up by events that I won't mention. And then I fell in love with this book further and further, and every page was just a joy and a fun romp adventure of beautifulness, and I loved it so much. Also, this book is really floppy, which I'm enjoying, but it's making it hard to hold up. So I mentioned it is gay, and it is so gay. I enjoyed the gay. So basically Monty is a bisexual, and Percy, his best friend, is, I think Percy's gay. Is he bi? Unclear. I know that Monty is a bisexual and he's deeply in love with his best friend, Percy. I love it. I love the bisexual rep. Also, this main character kind of reminded me of one of my friends. The way he gets hammered to avoid his trauma, the way he sleeps with men, women, anyone that will hump him. Yeah, he reminds me of a certain somebody. He reminds me of one of my really great friends for those reasons. Also, he's quite funny and sarcastic, so there's that. Anyway, so Monty and Percy are the romantic relationship, and they are so cute. I just can't get over how adorably beautiful they are. And just this whole book, I wanted them to just do it the whole time. It's one of those books where every time they're together and they're about to kiss, and then something happens and then they must run for their lives. The excitement, but also, Mackenzie Lee really makes you wait for it. She prick teases you and then she just waits to give it to you, and there's a real delayed gratification. You have to wait for it and she makes you pine. It comes to fruition, but you have to work for it, okay? I love them. The dialogue, the two characters, well, all of the characters in this book were just so fleshed out real people. Like I said, the main character reminded me of a real best friend I have, and not just for arbitrary reasons, for real like psychological human being reasons. And then there's Percy. I loved Percy so much. The problems these two characters had were so realistic. Felicity, I haven't even mentioned Felicity. Felicity takes no shit. She will cut a bitch and then sew a bitch back together. She's basically the one corralling these two dickheads through this tour. Monty's the idiot. He just wants to drink and fuck. That's all he wants out of life. He's a moron, but he's a lovable moron. He's so funny and charming. And then there's Percy, who's so sweet and nice and just wholesome. And then we have Felicity, who's taking none of their shit no more. Monty and Felicity have this real sibling rivalry going on, and she wants to be a doctor, but obviously she's a woman. And because this is set in the, I think it's set in the 1700s, and Felicity's just so funny. She's so strong-willed and she knows what she's doing. She's basically the unrecognized leader of this trio. She knows what to do. She's so on it. When a crisis arrives, she's just there. Monty's panicking. She's ready to go. She's got a plan. She knows what to do. And I love Felicity so much. She grew on me as well. The more the book went on, the more I loved Felicity. Also, Percy is black. Obviously, I wanted a really gay book because June, but also with all the Black Lives Matter stuff going on at the moment, it was such a pleasant surprise to have such black representation. The theme of racism was heavily prevalent in this story. So not only is it gay, but it's black as well, and also ableist. So all of the things were happening and represented in this book, and I'm here for it. Because Percy was black, there's a lot of issues that obviously arose between Monty and Percy. And there was a few moments where Percy was really being discriminated against, and Monty, being the White Lord, had all of the privilege. And everyone looked to Percy. They see a woman and a black man and they immediately all went to Percy. And of course Percy's the idiot of this trio. But because of woman, black man, they immediately went to Percy, and Percy didn't really understand the difference. He saw Percy as Percy. He loves Percy, but he's never experienced what Percy's experienced. There was a bit where he explains to Percy, Monty's like, well, why didn't these people thank me for helping them out? And Percy's like, well, because you've never had to not been able to do it yourself. It's great that you're helping people of colour out, but they're annoyed because that you shouldn't have to. They should be able to do it for themselves, and you don't know the frustration of never being able to stand up for yourself and having had to have your white friend do it for you. And just that conversations in this book were so great and timely and beautiful and amazing, and I loved it. There's also this scene at one point in the book where Percy's at this party and this woman's just talking to him like he's some novelty, and yeah, she walks away like, oh my god, Negroes can be so rude, and I'm just like cringing. And yeah, we haven't come that far, have we? I guess. Just the conversations it's brought up, and in the way, in the situation and the manner it brings them up, it just wove this perfect story that is very historically accurate. I love how in the end amendments, Mackenzie Lee talks about how she tried to make this as historically accurate as possible, which I absolutely love, but also the story, which was so interesting, the romance and the relationships, but then also just the situations and these themes that arrive naturally, or I guess she wove them in. It's just so clever and so brilliant. And there's also this crew of characters, which I don't want to talk about because it's kind of near the end and I don't want to spoil anything, but I loved, I'll just say the crew, because I think that'll make sense if you've read this book. I love the crew. And that scene where Person teaches Monty to fight, or able to defend himself, and that's just so wholesome. That bit when he flinches and the man immediately knows. Oh, this book is so good, so accurate to so many things. Historically accurate, accurate to just human beings and psychology, accurate to racism and representation of all kinds. Also, like I said, there's disability rep. There's a character with epilepsy, and it talks about that a lot too, especially in this era. Now we have certain cures for epilepsy that they didn't have then, and what they thought of it back then. So that was a lot of really interesting topics to arise from that. They thought epilepsy was like the devil or something. So many great, amazing areas of representation. Such a beautiful way of telling it, and it was so exciting to read, and I loved it so much. The characters were amazing, the world was so great, the relationships and the representation was just everything I could have ever hoped for. And looking back on it, I thought I wouldn't like this book. I love Monty. I love him so much. He's real and he's flawed. And I understand him, and yet I don't. And he's beautiful. Percy, Felicity. Oh, I love them all so much. Sometimes historical fiction can be very hard to read because it's so bogged down with historical accuracy, which is great, but sometimes it can also leave a story dry. But no, this is a story. At the core, it's a story, and it's all historically accurate, but at the core of it, it's about these characters, these made-up fictional people that don't feel fictional at all. It's amazing. If you love gayness and representation of all kinds, if you love an adventure and you love themes of the things I've mentioned, this is an amazing book, and I cannot wait to read A Lady's Guide to Petticoats and Piracy. There we go, she got it out. And there's another one coming out after that, but I don't remember the name. It's something to do with Percy, though. Monty, Percy and Felicity's stories, I think. I can't wait to read the next one. I absolutely love this, so I recommend it. Everyone's probably already read it because that's the story of my life, but here we are. Next up, the fourth book I read. I was planning to read this book back when I got it, and then again in May. I was this close to reading it in May, and then I had two books to choose between, and I chose the Sacrifice box instead of this one. So I was this close before. Now I've read it at a more appropriate time than ever, but there's never an appropriate time, always appropriate. I read Slay by Brittany Morris. Like I said, I really wanted to read this back in May and never got the chance to. Now I'm getting around to it, and I really enjoyed it. So this book is about a black girl called Kira. Was it Kira? I'm gonna go with Kira. My main character is a girl called Kira, and she's one of very few black people in a predominantly white school. But unbeknownst to anyone else, her family, her friends, and her boyfriend, no one knows that she is the game developer of a massive online RPG game. So she built this massive online game where black people can come on and just not worry about being black and just enjoy, play this game and not have to worry about white people. And she called it Slay. The game world was amazing, but I'll get to that in a bit. And in this story, a murder happens in the real world where someone gets killed, but it's over the Slay game. Someone murders someone else for online coins in her game, and then the media picks up on this murder and starts thinking that Slay is a gang, racist, exclusionist club of thugs. Not only is our main character heartbroken that a real person has died from the result of something she created, but also the media is just putting this horrible light on her game, and that's not what her game is at all. She's just getting attacked from all sides. So a lot of the white people from school are like, oh my god, did you hear about that horrible Slay murder? And then there's black people in her life like, oh yeah, that game is not doing us any favours. Basically, she's getting attacked from all angles. It's this story of how she's having to overcome just the prejudice and the discrimination that still exists. And if there was ever a time to pick up this book, why not now, okay? Why not now? I'm wondering if I had read it back in May when I was planning on it, I wonder if I'd have had a totally different reading experience. Reading it in June during all of this definitely had an effect on me because it's more prevalent than ever. Not that it wasn't prevalent before, but it changes things. That was definitely an experience. I really liked this book. It was hard to read in places because obviously the subject matter can be heavy, but also I thought it dealt with it in a very lovely way. Reading this book, you really get a sense of how she feels. I mean, I can never know what it's like to be a black girl in America. I will never know that experience, but I feel like through reading we do try and experience the lens of other people, and it was exhausting reading from her perspective, which is how it must feel. Just getting these constant comments, her white friends coming up to her saying, oh, can I get dreads? Is that okay? Like, is that cultural appropriation? Like, she has to be the voice of every black person ever just because she's one of the few black people in this school. So many small digs. There was a time where this white character is digging on her game and they just don't get it. All the white people people are like, these black people have made this game and only black people can enter? Well, that's like reverse racist. And she's just like banging her head against the wall, like, you don't get it. We just need a safe space. You have everything. Just give us this one space. And it was so interesting to read this perspective of someone who's so in this corner. It was brilliant. I love how it was so grounded in reality, but also it wasn't just so one-sided. It had so many aspects, topics of discussion. So the black characters in this book, a lot of the time they were fighting between themselves, how best to present themselves to the world. Some of them were just like, we shouldn't care, we just gotta power through. Others were like revolutionary about it. Some just wanted to not bring it up. Just because they're all black doesn't mean they all have the same opinions, and that's so true of anybody. But it was so well written in this book. There were black characters who were wrong, who were doing the wrong thing for the right reasons or the right thing for the wrong reasons, fighting amongst themselves how best to fight against racism. There was a character in particular, his views were so warped. Malcolm, I did not like Malcolm at all. But I won't talk more about that, but I hated him. Just because you're all black doesn't mean you're all on the same page. And some of them were like, oh no, we need to look less ghetto just to get along. And others were like, no, we need to celebrate our unique community. And I love that realism. It is a fight within your own because you're trying to solve this unsolvable problem. And we're all different with different opinions anyway. So it's not possible to all be of one mind completely with everything. And the same with the white characters in the book. There were some times where the white characters were just being clueless and really rude. The main character was just tired of them, and there was other times when the white characters were really thoughtful and trying to understand, and our main character really could see the nice, I want to say the word allies, the ones that were really trying to understand and trying to be reasonable. There was one of her friends in particular, oh, she was so sweet. Like, she did something not good, she's trying to do the right thing, but she got it wrong because she didn't know how to handle it, and she did the wrong thing. But the apology, she just wanted to be a friend, and that's all she wanted. And then there was arsehole white people who were just racist pieces of shit in the media, and then there was this black character who was just like dissing the slay game. People were different, we're not just black and white, and this book showed that even on no matter which side you're on colour wise, there's no one answer for all. And I found that so interesting and so well written. And as for the game, so she builds this game, right, and I loved the game. I thought it was so inventive and creative. I'm a board gamer, I play D&D and a lot of strategy board games with my game crew. I was so into the game. The card game I was so interested in. The game she built is like an online world, so there's different environments and regions, and all the characters obviously build characters, avatars, but there's also the whole world is built on this card game that they play. So when they battle, they slay each other, and there's these different cards that have black culture references to them. They all have different effects, so they have to strategize which cards to play in what order. I'm not going to go into it, just read the book if you want to know. Me, as a strategy board gamer, I absolutely loved. The game was well thought out. Like, I want to play it. Obviously I'm white, so I wouldn't have been invited, but it's such a great game system. The author put time and thought and energy into not only saying, oh yeah, she's clever, she built this online game, but she took the time to really build a strategy card game, which I think is amazing, and I loved it. The world of Slay was so detailed. It's like this book happened. I wanted to play Slay. I wanted it to be real, a real place. There was a real sense of community with the Slay players. I loved it nearer the end as well, when all the characters, you find out all the different black characters who had avatars and who they were in real life. Anyone black played Slay. It was just this one big community, this one thing they all had. I loved that, how people from all walks of life were playing this game. When you found out certain characters were playing this game, it was just such a fun way to tie things up. And there was twists and turns I did not see coming in this book, and I was interested the whole way throughout. It may have been hard to read at times, and I'm willing to put myself through all the uncomfortableness I need to try and understand the black experience. I know I never will, but it's all our duty to try and see from each other's point of view. I've learned things. Every time you read a book from a minority group, you tend to learn something. I learned what a few black people may think about certain ways we talk about black people and culture. Obviously I can't know everything, but there was a few really good lessons in this, but also it was just a fun read. It was so tense with the Slay game, and there was a big battle that was just so immense, and I loved the visuals. I could see it all in my head. I saw these avatars battling it out out, and these major game scenes were just so vivid in my mind. It was such an interesting story, an amazing way to tell it. A lot of people are picking this book up now because of the times we're in, which is cool. I'm no different. I'm a basic bitch. I kind of wish I'd read it back in May so that I'd already read it, but who cares? It doesn't matter when you get on the train, as long as you're on the train. I realise I've used a lot of train metaphors today, and I'll be interested in reading more from Brittany Morris and see what else she's got. There is more than just one book about Black lives. The Hate You Give is an amazing book, but it's not the only book that exists about Black people and about Black lives and about this topic. Whether you want to delve into that topic or just read a Black book, there's plenty of things. Just gotta find them and love them, apparently. And then I'd finished Slay, and I thought, you know what, I've got time to squeeze in one more book for June. So I reread The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. I've wanted to reread this for ages just because I love this story, and it does not get old. This thing has aged so well. It's just as amazing as the first time. It became this major phenomenon, but it deserved it. This book holds up, and I hate the idea that people look back on this book as if that was just the dystopian thing that happened and blew up and everyone forgot about. Like, no, this was amazing. It still is now, and I've been wanting to reread it, especially to get to The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, a new release. It was the perfect thing to kick me in the butt to do a reread of the series, so I picked it up and reread it. Just as amazing. This is my very battered, dog-eared copy. A lot of my books, as you can tell, are very pristine. These are not. These have been through the ringer. They're very buckled, beaten, and loved. I absolutely loved rereading this. It was such a blast. I sped through it. I read it in like 2 days, which kind of blows my mind. I don't know if it's because it's a reread I've read before, or it's just a quicker read than I remember. I remember when I first read this book when it came out, and I was an itty bitty baby who didn't have an obsession for reading. It took me like a week to read this book. I snapped through this in 2 days without a problem, and I barely even read in those 2 days. I went through this thing so quickly, and I'm so glad of it because it meant I could move on to Catching Fire. Yay! I didn't expect to read it that quick, and I'm so happy. And at the time of recording this right now, I've not picked this up yet, but I've got 3 days to finish this, and if I read that in 2, I've got nothing to do in the next 3 days. I can read this. My dad once borrowed this copy of the book and put it in his bag, and he got it all black. You understand me, right? This is my favourite of the Hunger Games trilogy. It always has been. I absolutely love this one, so I'll definitely finish this before the month is out and love it. I recently rewatched the movies as well. Me and my boyfriend rewatched them, which was fun. The best movie too. The direction of the movie gets better from the first one. Hunger Games is amazing, and I don't think anyone should ever contest that. And that dystopian isn't just a flash in the pan. It is a lifestyle. It's not a thing. Sorry, I just get annoyed when people are like, oh yeah, dystopians, like they are so popular at some point, so like I'm burnt out from them, like I've had too many. No, you can't just say one genre is dead. It's a whole genre. It's okay if you've had enough of them for the month, but to just write them off, you do you. You're missing out. I cannot wait to read this. This is my favourite one, so I'm going to fly through that. And then the first book I read in July, you probably know what it's going to be. It will be Mockingjay. And then at some point I will read A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Spoiler alert for July. And that's what I read in June. I hope you had a great reading month. I certainly picked up the pace. Let me know in the comments down below what you've read this month. I'd love to know. Or what you think of any of these books. Do you have any opinions whatsoever? Any of these books are ones you want to read, especially the first 4, because those are the ones that you probably either haven't read or have read or you know about or you have opinions on. So let me know in the comments because I love replying to your comments. And if I don't, it's because YouTube's being a bitch. But I will figure it out. I have to. So like this video, it really does make my day. And thank you so much for watching and getting to the end. I love you. Thanks so much for being here. You make my heart sing. Thank you so much. And I will see you in my next video. Bye.